Lots of people. It's lovely, isn't it? There's a lot of people here. It's impressive.
A very warm welcome indeed, ladies and gentlemen, to this prestigious meeting here at the Tyringham Arms Hotel in Cornwall. I know quite a few of you have travelled far and wide, some of you from Manchester, Liverpool, Southampton, absolutely amazing. So a very warm welcome to everybody here tonight. We have a fantastic presentation to look forward to. This meeting is being organised by Penzance Truth Action. And we are very privileged and very honoured indeed to have Dr. Judy Wood with us this evening to give us this presentation. We're kicking off the UK tour of Dr. Judy Wood, and we are the first in the country to benefit from her UK tour. So it is a privilege and an honour for us. So thank you very much indeed, and thanks to Andrew Johnson for helping to organise the schedule and everything else like that. Just to say, I don't know whether Dr. Judy Wood even needs an introduction. She is a former professor of Clemson University. She has degrees in applied physics, in civil engineering, mechanical engineering. She has written a book, Where Did the Towers Go?, which is probably a publication which has had more impact in this century than any other publication. It is absolutely amazing. So without further ado, it is my honor and privilege to introduce to you tonight Dr. Judy Wood.
Thank you. Well, I assumed this would be a scientific discussion, so I came dressed appropriately. But to make a point also, often we are given cues subconsciously to cause us to think a certain way. And often folks use props. Like, for example, Colin Powell, when he stood in front of the UN and held up that little test tube with dust in it and said, biological warfare, what happens if he dropped it? Obviously it was a prop, but people didn't stop to think that. Subconsciously, they felt we were at threat, that this was evidence that such a thing existed. And these subconscious things work amazingly. So we can have a scientific discussion without the white coat and the pocket protector and the lab notebook. And of course, we need to bag the evidence. Where did the towers go? Yeah. Oh. Okay. All right. Don't know how these things work. So, where did the towers go? Anybody know? How do you figure that out? Looking at the evidence. Empirical evidence is the truth that theory must mimic, not the other way around. Once upon a time, there were two towers. Then they went away, and this is all that was left. Here's that block. Few outer wall, pieces of the outer wall. I call them wheat checks. Originally, it was a photographer who called them wheat checks because they look like, I guess you call them shreddies here. They kind of look like that. They came in prefab units of 3 stories tall by 3 columns wide, and they built the tower out of these prefab units that look like wheat checks. Reminder of what was there. These huge buildings, and again, this little corner was all that was left. This is the dawn of a new age. Somebody has the ability to disrupt the molecular bonds of matter. But what I mean by directed energy, energy is directed where it goes and what it does. It's like giving it new instructions, directing it what to do, but also it directs it in an area. I'm not talking about something like this, a laser pointer. That's one type, but there's another type of directed energy. And we know this technology exists. The whole world saw it, even if they don't realize it. And this technology can be used for free energy for the whole world, once they realize it. So these huge things went away to that. Just imagine that, these huge towers, and that's all that's left. They didn't burn up, they didn't slam to the ground. They turned into dust in midair. People were shown this image and told, collapse, collapse. You see this image? Collapse, terror, collapse, terror, collapse. And that's what they see when they look at it. But this is really frothing up. It shoots up and over it. It's like a drinking fountain of dust. Let's look at it more carefully. But why did so few people see it? Why was an entire planet just about pulled on this con job, this magic show? There are 3 things I found that really keep people from seeing this. Poor problem-solving skills.
Just move the mic a little bit out there so it's
Okay, great. It's hard to listen to. I'll try to talk louder too. Groupthink, peer pressure, and we're all sensitive to peer pressure, and it's a powerful force, and they're also terrified of the implications. And any one of those things will keep people from seeing what happened. They'll blind themselves to it. A combination of those things is a double whammy, but any one of these things will keep people from seeing it. But I'd like to focus on the first, problem solving. The answer is 27, right? Am I right? Well, it depends on what the question is. How do you know? If you start out with the answer, to what question? Syntax is the ordering of things. This question can be answered, there's 2 different answers, depending on how you group the mathematics of it. So the order in which you proceed gives you a different result. And the same thing is true for this kind of problem solving. If you begin with how it happened, how it happened. And so eeny, meeny, miny, mo, fire, thermite, dynamite, nukes, mini nukes, pocket nukes, all these different choices that we're left with. And that causes us to have a biased data collection. We go looking for data to support these items. But then what happens if it's something else that we didn't foresee? What we're doing then, essentially, is using a theory on how it happened to determine what happened. We imagine what happened, and then we're solving an imaginary problem. That is the secret to a magic show as well as a cover-up. You get people to assume how it happened, and they argue round and round about opinions of how and what they imagine, what they think happened, and they never look at the evidence of what happened. So instead, let us start out collecting data, looking at the data to determine what happened, and after you determine what happened, you can figure out how it happened. The data will tell you the truth. Keep listening to it until you understand what it's saying, and don't let yourself get distracted away from it. There's lots of distractions. Well, for example, you start out looking, not looking into this type of technology. You wouldn't ever get to the right answer. This is steel turning into dust. Let's say you want to impersonate these beams. Over here, there's all this thick, opaque dust that blocks out all of the sunlight trailing these beams. So let's say you're going to impersonate the beam. You jump off, you cover yourself with dust and jump off the top of the building. The person on the ground looking up, are they going to see that dust trailing behind you? No. Okay, you get a couple of bags of flour, jump off and heave the flour out as you're falling. you still don't have enough. How many armloads of flour are you going to have to eject off of you to make that much dust that blocks out 100% of sunlight? For a short period of time, it actually blocked out the sunlight. That has to be the material itself frothing up into dust to create that much dust. So something that turns solid steel into dust exists, some technology. Now going back to the previous slide, if you hadn't considered that and you'd started out with nukes, thermite, fire, all sorts of, you wouldn't have included that option because you don't know of that technology. But the data will show you that it exists.